Welcome back, listeners. We have Ben Smith back with us again today. So excited to have you, Ben. We're going to take this deep dive into the world of, yes, it's health and fitness. Yes, it's lifestyle changes, but there's a whole mental component that if it's not addressed, if we don't take a look in that area, that some people are missing that puzzle piece or secret ingredient to where their success really could be. So, first of all, welcome back. And then you lead us. Tell
Yeah,
us
thanks.
about why you care about the health component.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me back. Last time was great. I'm ready to dive in. So we finished last talk with this app that I'm releasing. I could talk more in depth about what that is, but there's a part of it. So it's not just reps and sets and weight and time in the gym or nutrition recommendations. There's all that, which is valuable. Over the course of my time coaching and just being an athlete or a human myself, I've started to realize how important the emotional regulation aspects of wellness are. And I use that term specifically. I think the greatest skill anybody can have is their ability to self-regulate or self-soothe, in a better term. And my main focus over the course of the last 5 years has been that specifically. So myself, I joined the Army when I was 18. I went to school and then graduated, commissioned as an officer. And then I was in the active duty Army for almost 7 years. And I got out in late 2018. That transition was incredibly stressful for me, something that I didn't expect to happen. I'm this high performer. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to leave the service and everyone's going to want to hire me and it's going to be great. I'm the best and nobody can tell me otherwise. And I got out and I realized that I was completely wrong. Not many people were interested. I didn't get any jobs. Nothing worked out the way that I wanted it to. And I hadn't yet built the tools. You would think, having that experience, that I would have the tools to manage that stress. And I didn't. And I didn't know where to turn and I didn't know how to handle anything. I ended a relationship. I moved across the country. I ended up taking a job that didn't pay me anything. And I'm living in Santa Monica, one of the most expensive cities in America. And I fell into this depression, a thing that I'd never experienced before in my life. And like maybe trigger warning, I had a couple suicide attempts in late 2018 and early 2019. And I look back on that and I'm like, God, there were so many other choices I could make. And now I'm excited to talk about it because I know there's a lot of people experiencing similar things, especially with the state of the world and the way things are trending at the moment. We're in a mental health crisis. And I joke, I just got to jump the ball and I had mine early. But over the course of 2019 and beyond, my exposure to a structured therapy practice and intentional breath work, I basically Googled, how do I fix this? And I had the help of some really incredible friends, a roommate, and a couple other close confidants that drove me to seek out some methods of managing my stress and learning how to self-regulate and manage my emotions. And it was therapy, it was breath work, and then for me at the time, cold exposure and diving headfirst, pun intended, diving headfirst into those things allowed me to experience stress in a controlled way and then also learn the skills to navigate those stressors and then employ those skills out in the world. So, the stress of the ice bath, I know it's not going to kill me in the moment, but it enables me to handle maybe something that is equally or even more stressful out in the world. And then there's other things at play where, these things compound on top of one another. So you do one thing in isolation, it's valuable. You do all the things together, there's a synergistic effect, and it's even more valuable. And so back to the app, I'm excited about delivering an app where people can play along from anywhere in the world, where there'll be fitness, nutrition recommendations, and then also a component of connection with me as your coach, but then also inside of the community, like other people participating in the app. There's a shared experience. And maybe I'll shed some light on some tools that hopefully are incredibly valuable. I want to close that all out by saying that just like fitness, it's not a million things. Like I'm not going to provide you with 47,000 different ways to self-regulate. It's like maybe there are like two that are really great for you. I use two. I do like a very specific breath protocol and then I love tapping. And I use the two and I can do those in my daily life all the time. And it's something that I'm familiar with, something that actually works, and something that gives me the result that I'm looking for.
My brain's going a million miles per hour and thinking how other people might be listening and going,
Yeah.
well, it works for you, or you sound really open to it. I don't come from a supportive
Yeah.
environment. Therapy would be wonderful.
I don't
Yeah.
either. I wasn't raised in that environment. I can share, hopefully my dad's not listening, but I left the
You won't
army.
forward it to him.
Yeah, don't send it to him. I left the army and I left this relationship. I left a toxic relationship. I wasn't right for her. She wasn't right for me. But I was
Mhm.
losing everything that I knew at the moment. And so I was like holding on to this thing that like wasn't right for me. And I knew it wasn't right. And my dad in passing said something and it like is burned in my brain. But I'm 28 at the time and he goes, "You better get out of this, man, or you're going to need to go to therapy." Like it was like some horrible thing. And like that's just like the context of my upbringing and like where I was raised. That's okay. Like that's their experience. But I haven't stopped thinking about it. It's like therapy's been the single greatest thing I've ever done. I look back and I'm like, had I not experienced those incredibly stressful, grave times, then like I wouldn't have been thrust into an experience or a season of my life where I'm able to pursue therapy or pursue these other methods of healing. And so to that point, to the people who are like, "Oh my God, I'm not in a place, I don't have the support to pursue these things." I'm like, maybe it's not therapy, but maybe it's just like some intentional breath work, like 2 to 4 minutes a day, or like you tapping on the side of your head for 20 seconds and then tapping on the top of your lips and then maybe tapping on your chin and then tapping on your collarbone. Like right now I did that. That took what, 14 taps and I'm already a little bit calmer. You can feel my voice dropped just a little bit. I'm deeper into my body. I think the overarching theme of this is just getting out of your head and into your body.
Right. And
Yeah.
I feel like tapping needs to be a whole nother episode because I'm
It's my
living in
it's my new
podcast
favorite
world.
thing.
Yeah, I get exposed to all of it, but I don't think the average person does. So they're probably like, I don't know what tapping is. It goes back to, man, if we can't say yes to therapy, then something
Yeah.
like tapping or even cold water exposure starts to be like, what are you talking about? Until you live in that land a little bit. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden you're like, oh, that did help. And that helped.
It's
And now
just
I'm open.
the next right manageable step. And like maybe
Right.
therapy is a bridge too far, or like maybe me getting into a cold tub is too far. But like I could turn the water in my shower to the coldest setting, or not even the coldest setting, for a couple seconds at the end of my regular hot shower, and I can reap some incredible benefits.
Yeah.
Incredible. I've suffered with depression, anxiety, and ADHD for my entire adult life. And cold exposure has fixed it. And I know that's crazy. And people say, like, "Oh, yeah, like I solved all my problems. And this is the only method." And I just at the beginning of last episode talked about how you shouldn't be dogmatic in your fitness pursuit. But getting cold saved my life. It's
Mhm.
it's nuts. It's nuts. And I know that it's not right for everybody. And I know given the trauma that people experience, some traumas like don't respond, or like some experiences don't respond the same way. Maybe
Right.
it's too much, and that's totally okay. But I also
My brain's going a million miles per hour and thinking how other people might be listening and
yeah.
going, well, it works for you, or you sound really open to it. I don't come from a supportive
Yeah,
environment that would be like therapy would be wonderful.
I don't
Yeah.
either. I wasn't raised in that environment. I can share, hopefully my dad's not listening, but I left the army and I left this relationship. I left a toxic relationship. I wasn't right for her, she wasn't right for me, but I was
Mhm.
losing everything that I knew at the moment. And so I was like holding on to this thing that like wasn't right for me, and I knew it wasn't right. And my dad in passing said something is burned in my brain. But I'm 28 at the time and he goes, "You better get out of this, man, or you're going to need to go to therapy." It was like some horrible thing. That's just like the context of my upbringing and where I was raised. That's okay. Like that's their experience. But I haven't stopped thinking about it. Therapy's been the single greatest thing I've ever done. And
Yeah.
I look back and I'm like, had I not experienced those incredibly stressful, grave times, then like I wouldn't have been thrust into a season of my life where I'm able to pursue therapy or pursue these other methods of healing.
Right.
And so to that point, to the people who are like, "Oh my God, I'm not in a place, I don't have the support to pursue these things." I'm like, maybe it's not therapy, but maybe it's just like some intentional breath work, like 2 to 4 minutes a day, or like you tapping on the side of your head for 20 seconds and then tapping on the top of your lips and then maybe tapping on your chin and then tapping on your collarbone. Like right now I did that. That took what, 14 taps and I'm already a little bit calmer. You can feel my voice dropped just a little bit. I'm deeper into my body. I think the like overarching theme of this is just getting out of your head and into your body.
Right. I feel like tapping needs to be a whole nother episode because I get exposed to all of it, but I don't think the average person does. So they're probably like, I don't know what tapping is. It goes back to, man, if we can't say yes to therapy, then something
Yeah.
like tapping or even cold water exposure starts to be like, what are you talking about? Until you live in that land a little bit. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden you're like, oh, that did help. And that helped.
It's
And now
just
I'm
the next right manageable step. And like maybe
right.
therapy is a bridge too far, or like maybe me getting into a cold tub is too far. But I could turn the water in my shower to the coldest setting, or not even the coldest setting, for a couple seconds at the end of my regular hot shower. And I can reap some incredible benefits.
Yeah.
Incredible. I've suffered with depression, anxiety, and ADHD for my entire adult life. And cold exposure has fixed it. And I know that's crazy. And people say, like, oh, yeah, like I solved all my problems. This is the only method. And I just at the beginning of last episode talked about how you shouldn't be dogmatic in your fitness pursuit. But getting cold saved my life. It's nuts. And I know that it's not right for everybody. And I know given the trauma that people experience, some traumas don't respond, or like some experiences don't respond the same way. Maybe
Right.
it's too much, and that's totally okay. But I also just talk from my lived experience, and I'm like, this has been so valuable for me.
Yeah. And you don't know until you try.
Back to our last episode, you don't know until you experience it. And that's why having the external accountability. I have a lot of friends who are interested in doing the cool, novel fitness things that I do or wellness practices that I do. And there's multiple times a week where I'm on a FaceTime with somebody who wants to do their first cold shower. And they just need like a little bit of emotional support. In California, on the FaceTime with a buddy who's in New York City, who's like, yo, I just like, will you just walk me through this really quick? Then they get in their cold shower and they're like, oh my God, I feel incredible afterward. We knew this would happen.
Does the cold have to come in the moment of the anxiety or the depression? Like, how does that work? Or should it just be built into the day? How often?
Yeah, so there's like different ways to look at it, right? There's layers to everything. So you could look at cold exposure as just an opportunity to increase muscle recovery. That's a cool benefit. You could
Mhm.
look a little deeper and be like, oh, okay, this strengthens my immune system. That's like another secondary benefit, like another layer of benefit. There could be another benefit where it's like, okay, well, this increases my dopamine production in my brain, which like if you have ADHD or depression and anxiety, you have some sort of dopamine production deficiency. And so you like are fiending for dopamine all the time. Well, if I can get myself in an environment where there's a sustained increase in dopamine, which like an ice bath or cold exposure would provide you, then I get positive benefits for a long time afterward. For me, what I like to do is I'll do, 3 to 5 minutes in a cold tub. And it's not like in response to me having, some sort of anxiety event or like a depressive event or anything like that. It's just like a regular practice that I do. I get in the tub, I get out of the tub, I feel better. I have this elevated level of dopamine for, the next 5 hours or so. And then the come down is really slow. I liken it to cocaine. So in a younger version of Ben was really interested in partying, did a lot of things that he probably shouldn't do. And so I liken it to, like using cocaine. Use cocaine, you get this massive elevation in dopamine. You feel really great for like 10 minutes. And then you get this huge drop off. And it's not just back to baseline, but it's back to something way below. And so you're like, oh my God, I need more cocaine. Well, I do an ice bath and I get the same exact response, but it's sustained for like 4 to 5 hours. And then the drop off is
Mm.
so slow that I don't even realize that it's gone. And during that time of elevated dopamine, I can get some really productive work done. I feel different than I've ever felt. I feel like a different, better version of myself, which is really cool. And then we go back to this like layers of benefit. It's like there's also a benefit of just like doing something that I don't want to do. It's my favorite
Yes.
thing, but I don't want to do it. Like, are you kidding me? It's so cold. Like, I don't want to do that. So if you look at it, I've gotten muscle recovery benefits. I've got this like immune system benefit coming out of it. I've got this elevated level of dopamine, which allows me to be like a productive member of society or like a happy person inside of my brain. And then I've also got this level of just like me doing a hard thing, which there's so much value there. I'm really excited about this idea of keeping promises to yourself. And this is something that like I said before, like all the work that I do with anybody that I'm coaching is stuff that I just do with myself. And so it's like a thing that I'm working through as an individual is like, Ben, you got to keep the promises that you make to yourself. It's like if I say that I'm going to do a cold shower or a cold bath or whatever it is, I'm going to do that. I don't know how many days we're into 2023, but I've done a cold shower every single morning for 2023. And I've done an ice bath, every second or third day. And it's been so incredible. It's been so, like just to see that incremental change. And it's just like fitness. You don't see the changes in the moment or day to day or even week to week, but across the first 3 months of the year, it's noticeable. And it's been so fantastic.
So when you're on the road traveling, then
Yeah.
cold shower will do the trick type of thing. Like you can still
So
maintain these habits even on the
totally.
road.
I'm very lucky in that I build out the training protocol and I build out the whole wellness suite for the trip. So I work with touring musicians. The band that I coach is called Rufus Du Sol. We're an electronic dance music group. And we've basically been on a world tour since COVID ended, since the lockdowns ended. Finished up about a 16-month tour in January, going back out on the road here again in April. And since I'm the one in charge of it, we bring an ice tub. So we have an ice
Awesome.
bath. The touring life is incredibly chaotic. There's a lot happening. It's not just one artist, it's three artists and an entire team. So there's a lot of personalities, there's a lot of different needs. And it brings me back into like my being an army officer. Like I'm on the road with my like soldiers and we've like got this incredible thing. We're like a little family. But if you even look at that, like you can apply the principles or the tenets of that experience to like a regular life. Like I'm just a young lady over 40 living at home with my family. I'm setting the example by like participating in all the things with them. There's leadership inside of the team there. Like the band members are leading the rest of the team. As a parent, through your example, your children follow suit. It's like, oh my God, they see you doing things. They're more inclined to pursue them themselves. So that's like a really cool thing. It's like the guys see me do ice baths. They're like, hell yeah, I'm doing an ice bath. But then even setting up regular routine has been the most important thing for us. So I approach it, I jokingly say like a military operation. So we wake up around the same time every day. We meet for coffee in the mornings. We talk about what's happening for everybody. We meet to train. We have lunch together. We fill the time between lunch and whatever the evening activity is. That could be rehearsal, that could be a show, that could be a dinner, it could be whatever it is with productive activity. And then the performance happens. Before and after the performance, there's breath work. We do a little bit of movement. We set some intention. They perform the show. And then after the show, we have more down regulation breath work. We ice bath and then have a family dinner. That kind of mirrors the day of a family.
Yeah.
And so it's been interesting. You know, I work with these creatives, and then also a majority of my clientele at the moment is founders and people in tech. My business is mostly remote. And so I've got these guys living in San Francisco, Puerto Rico, New York. And it's like their days are full of work. And so we're looking for opportunities to implement some time for them, for themselves, and then for connection to their family or their closest relatives. Very similar to how the band is all over the place. And we're trying to just look for time to find some connection.
Great. I love that you are highlighting the fact that we can fit in health. However, it can
Yeah.
fit in our life. We just have to figure it out through, again, coaching, accountability systems, what works for us.
Living in the
So,
gray. If you can't go to the gym for an hour or an hour and a half every day, don't do that. Go to the gym for 20 minutes. Anything is better than nothing. And like I talked about before, keeping promises to yourself, it's like confidence is built through keeping promises to yourself. So if you're like, oh my God, I'm going to pursue this thing, then pursue that thing and see how cool the end result is. Not even just for the sake of the experience itself, but like the confidence that you built through that pursuit. Me just getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning has been the biggest thing for me this year. Is like I just made a promise to myself to get up at that early. Now I believe in my ability to do other things that might also be stressful or scary or things that I don't want to do.
yeah, I'm so glad you brought back up the promise to yourself. Okay, because
Yeah.
is this part of your app too? Like, do you feel like you have a section on there that people are making and holding their promises to themselves?
That's something that we can add. So the app itself is a really cool platform. There's a longer story here, but so I owned a gym for a number of years and we worked to build, it was called Rodeo, still a great place. My former partner owns and operates the gym here, group fitness class. It's fantastic. But we built out an app that was ours through a developer. And it was an absolute mess. I don't know if any of your listeners have had that experience. I'm sure people are in tech and doing things like that, but oh my gosh, it was the worst experience of my life. And so when I left, I pivoted and I'm now going to use a system called Playbook. And Playbook is incredibly cool because not only do you get access to me as a coach, like if you enroll as a client of Ben, you also get access to all of the other coaches that host training, nutrition, whatever on the site. So not only do you get access to me, my emotional regulation, my strength training, my nutrition stuff, but you'll get access to any other practitioner that's on the app, which is really cool. There's hundreds. It's fantastic. And so there is a cool aspect of you being a part of something larger, but at the moment I don't know that there is an opportunity to be like holding yourself accountable other than like checking in and doing your training. Outside of that, I'm really interested in creating community. The thing that I have felt most excited about in my professional life up until this point is like team building and community building. Being an Army officer, that's basically the job, is team building, owning gyms, or being even like a personal trainer. It's like building community and relationship and momentum around a thing. And so I'm hoping that this thing expands into something more robust over time. And I know there's like a chat function to interact with other people that are participating. In the short term, that's the way to stay accountable. But
Right.
in my mind, an aspect of it where it's like not only do you participate, but like maybe your friend who lives down the street also participates. I'm really interested in this idea of transitioning back to more of an analog approach to fitness. And I'm the guy releasing an app, so it's silly that I'm saying this, but it's like everyone's moving digital. The most important thing is this connection. Although we're talking through a screen right now, it's like this one-on-one connection, or like being in the same room, breathing the same air as somebody. That's so important. And so my challenge to everyone that participates is like find someone in your immediate vicinity that you can also do this with. Similar to my friend who meets me in the gym every morning to train. Like I could do it on my own, but it's so much better when there's somebody else with me. Yeah.
100%. And then I think like the fine line there is making sure that they're not your deal breaker on showing up or not showing up. You're going to go
Yeah.
no matter what.
People say like, oh, Ben, you're so chill, or like it's so nonchalant, or if you're not mean, it's on you. Like, nobody's doing this for you. It's on you to get there. It's on you to do the hard work. Also, like, don't mistake it. Like training has to be hard. It needs to be challenging to change you. You have to make concessions where you can make concessions. And then you need to really go where you have to go. If you need to be like dialed in on your nutrition to achieve the result that you need to achieve, then like you need to be dialed in. If you need to be dialed in on your training, or you need to be like really intentional with your training to achieve the result that you want, you need to be really dialed. I talk a lot about if you are going to do the things that you say that you want, or if you really are interested in achieving the things that you say that you want, then get really specific and really intentional with where you put your attention and your effort. And if you're going to let your partner or your emotional support keep you from getting to the gym, that's a whole different conversation.
Right. Layers. Yeah. I call them onion layers.
I know that this is a bad situation where, like, let's say the person that you've enlisted to support you doesn't show up or doesn't support you in the way that you need. There's so much power in taking ownership for yourself and being like, okay, well, even though they can't help me in this moment, I'm going to help myself. There's so much power there. Success anywhere breeds success anywhere. And so if I make that decision for myself now, I'm going to make other decisions for myself later. Maybe it's something more important than whether or not I show up to the gym this morning.
Right. And you're so good about, again, highlighting that it is about us and how important it is to trust ourselves. Yeah. So another podcast guest who said the good part about if we're part of the problem, we're also part of the solution. Totally. And I think that we're always part of the problem and we're always part of the solution. And so then it's taking ownership of what we can do. And if it's to go to a therapist, that's part of your solution.
You get to choose. Nothing is lost. Often people are like, oh, but I haven't worked out in 10 years. How am I going to do that? Or like, oh, I've been eating poorly for the last 3 years because I've been stuck at home, working from home. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Like for the next 3 years, let's try something else. Before we worry about 3 years from now, like you're going to eat lunch today. Yeah, if it's nutrition, that's the thing that we need to focus on. When we have lunch today, we'll just make an okay or a better decision today. When we have dinner later tonight, then presented with different decisions, you just make the appropriate decision at dinner. And then tomorrow at breakfast, I've been navigating my own sobriety journey for the last 2 years. And there are so many parallels to that experience to the fitness, nutrition, wellness experience, where it's like one day at a time, one decision at a time. And this theme of like making a manageable next step shows up all over the place. You don't have to win everything right now. You don't have to change everything right now. We're not setting world records. You're just making a decision at a time. And there are so many that you can make too. You don't need to come back squat with me in Venice Beach. You could stay at home. You could stretch. You could go for a walk. You could eat some extra protein. It's like living in the gray. There's so many different steps that you could take, and it's all okay.
And man, this might have been what you would have said as I'm about to ask you. I hate that we're wrapping
Do
up,
it.
but we are.
No, no,
Always
do it.
say if there's like one thing that you could wrap your arms around our listeners, the one thing that you like hope and pray that they heard today. I'm sure we've already said it, but what comes to your mind?
I haven't said this specifically, but I think it's something along the lines of you are totally capable of achieving the things that you say that you want to achieve.
Hmm.
Totally capable. If I
No
can do
lost
it,
causes.
none. You've done hard things before.
Yeah.
Everyone listening has done hard things before. And hard is relative, right? It's different for everybody. The things that are hard for me might not be hard for you, but we've all done hard things before. And all it takes is a choice to make positive action steps in the direction of the things that you say that you want. And that's all it is. And if you don't know where to start, find somebody who's doing the things that you want to do. You learn from them. You enlist the help of an external accountability source. And then the only way you lose is if you quit. The only way. So just don't quit. And then you can't blow it.
Right. Right. Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, of
Thank
course.
you. Thank you. One more time, where can our listeners find you and your app?
Yeah, my name's Ben Smith. On Instagram at Ben V Smith, BenVeeSmith. My website is benvsmith.com, spelled the same way. And then my app will just be hosted through the website. The platform is called Playbook. We're still working through what we call it. Maybe it's like Train with Ben. Maybe it's something else. Who knows? It's going to be an opportunity for you, if you're interested, do some resistance training because that's the thing that I'm into. There's also a component with emotional regulation and some mindset work. And then hopefully it's an opportunity for you and people closest to you to enroll yourself in something that might hold you accountable.
So awesome. I can't wait to experience it. I'm going to grab it.
Sick.
And hopefully we get you back one day. And for
I would
now,
love
just
to.
thank you again for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been really nice. I know I talked a lot. I hope some of that was useful. It's been really great.